guys, welcome back to my channel. Simone here. Today I'm going to be filming my March wrap up, and I read 9 books in the month of March, which I'm really happy with. I'm enjoying not reading kind of 15 books in a month. I'm actually finding that reading less books is less stressful for me, and I'm just really enjoying what I am reading, so I think that is a very good kind of thing for me this year, I've noticed. So the first book that I read was Wolf by Wolf by Ryan Growden, which was the final book in my Stand Up to the TBR part 4, which I will link down below. I've also done a part 5 this month, which I will also link down below, which will tell you what books I'll be reading over the next 3 months. But this was the final one that I had to read for last month's, or the last times. This follows a 17-year-old girl named Yael who is living in a world where Hitler won the war. It's 1956, 10 years after, or over 10 years after the Nazis won the war in Germany, and Yael is part of a resistance movement who has one mission, and that is to kill Hitler. And this, they decide basically that Yael is going to take part in a motorbike race, and she wants to win so that she can get an audience with Hitler, which is one of the prizes of this race, and then she can use that opportunity to kill him. And this was really interesting. Yael is also a shapeshifter, which is not something that I have really read a lot about before, and I really enjoyed this. I gave this book a 4-star. I absolutely loved it. I really enjoy reading about World War II, and I found the kind of alternate ending or the alternate history of World War II really interesting, and kind of thinking about what might have happened had it gone the other way, and obviously it's horrendous. The idea of that, but yeah, it was really interesting read, definitely very well researched. I can't wait to read more from Ryan Growden in the future, because I did enjoy it so much. And yeah, I would definitely recommend people read this one if you haven't already, and I'm really glad that the Stand Up to the TBR got me to read this one. The second book I read in the month of March was a buddy read that I read with quite a few people on Twitter. We had a group sort of buddy read, and I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't really know what this was about. I knew it was a thriller, and I knew that it was kind of mysterious, but I didn't know anything else about it. And I think that's the best way to go into this. I will say, I gave this book a 4-star, and I docked a star because the beginning of this, I was quite close to DNFing actually. If I would not have been doing a buddy read, I would not have finished this book. I think the first sort of 50 to 100 pages are really slow, and I didn't like the language that was written, or the way it was written, but then as I got through the rest, like, it was so amazing. There were so many twists and turns, and I did not see any of them coming. It's really amazing, and I'm really glad that I did read this. I can understand now why it is the classic that it is. This basically follows a woman whose name you never know, and I think this is because she's being overshadowed, and I'll tell you why in a minute. This basically follows a girl who is working as a ladies' companion, and she meets a man, and Max de Winter proposes to her very suddenly, very quickly, like it all happens overnight basically. And they get married, and they move to Max de Winter's house. And his wife died maybe a year before this book, and the memory of his wife is still very much present in the house, and like the housekeeper is very much attached to her, and lots of things happen, and there's lots of mysteries and secrets, and the main character, I think, feels very overshadowed by that, and I think that's kind of shown in the fact that you never know her name. I loved this book. Like I said, I gave it a 4-star in the end. I do think the first 100 pages let it down, but I think once you get past that, it really starts to make sense, and it starts to kind of like get you hooked, and you don't want to put it down. So yeah, very much liked this one. Glad that I buddy read it, and I'm very excited to buddy read in the future more books, because I love buddy reading now. The third book I read this month was also a buddy read that I did with Nadia from Fit and Beautiful Heart Reads, and I'll link her channel down below, because I had an amazing time buddy reading this. Really enjoyed that. And I think you should check out her channel. I mentioned this in my March favourites, so if you watched that video you'll know what's about to come up, but if not, go and check out that video. I will link it down below and in the cards above. But I read Pretty Girls by Karin, and I'd heard really good things about this. Again, it's a thriller. We all know I love a thriller, and I absolutely loved this book. I gave this a 5-star. It's so good. This is a thriller like none other, basically. This is like a book that I've never ever read before. This is nothing like anything I've ever read. And it follows a woman named Claire Scott, whose older sister went missing 20 years previously, and then another girl has just gone missing, and it's about them trying to figure out what happened, and there is again lots of twists and turns, just like Rebecca. It was actually a really good one to read along, like at the same time as that, because I was reading the two buddy reads at the same time. And yeah, so many things happened in this. Like that synopsis about the missing girl is like the tip of the iceberg. There is so much in this. It is incredibly gory and incredibly violent, and there are lots of triggering things in this. So if you get triggered by kind of violence, rape, sexual assault, murder, torture, the list goes on, I would definitely miss this one. But for me, I personally found it really, really interesting. Very much enjoyed reading this. Definitely want to read more Karin Slaughter in the future, which I thought was going to be the case. But yeah, love, love, love this book, and I'm very glad that I finally read it. The next book that I read was actually one that had been on my shelf for a really long time, as in on my Goodreads to read shelf rather than owned. But I found it in a charity shop relatively recently and decided that I wanted to pick it up because I was really excited about it. And that is Between Shades of Grey by Rita Sepetys, and this is a World War II book. I think I mentioned this in a video before, and I said that this was something to do with a maritime disaster. Now I believe that's actually the other, I'm not sure what it's called, but it's a different Rita Sepetys book. Let me know if you know what that's called, because I can't remember. But this one was about World War II, and it's about Lena, who was 15 years old, her mother and her younger brother, who live in Russia, and they are captured by Soviet guards and they are deported to Siberia. And this is based on a true story about something that actually happened to people, and this was heartbreaking. It was a really difficult read because, you know, it was a sort of based on a true story, and yeah, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. And to know that this actually happened, and the things that happened, there was just so many horrendous things happening. I did only give this one a 3-star because for me, I don't know if it was because it was from the perspective of Lena, who was 15, but she was a very young 15, I think. She was very naive, and sometimes I found it quite sort of immature writing, or immature sentence, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was the way that she spoke. I think she came across a lot younger than 15 years old, and although that's not really an issue, and obviously it was hard to read from a child's perspective about something horrendous such as World War II, I don't know, it kind of pulled me away from the story a little bit. However, I do think it was incredibly well done, and I do like the way that Rita Sepetys writes. So I feel like reading the other book that she wrote, I can't remember what the other one's called. No, not at all, but I think I will enjoy that one, because I did enjoy this one. So although it's a 3-star, it's not kind of without its merits for sure. So yeah, definitely enjoyed this one. It just wasn't my favourite. Next up, I read another James Patterson book. We all know I love James Patterson, and this is actually probably, brace yourselves, my favourite James Patterson book I've ever read. This is the fourth book in the Alex Cross, Detective Alex Cross series, and I loved this book. This one is Jack and Jill by James Patterson, which basically follows two different murder sprees. Basically, you have one where someone is murdering young children by, I'm really sorry if you can hear. They've decided to dig up the road outside my house. I'm really sorry about that. It's just down the road from where Alex Cross lives. Children from his children's school have been murdered. I think it's 2 of them. And so he's investigating that. And also he's investigating the murder of a US senator who was murdered, and a note was left from Jack and Jill, hence the name of the book. And I loved this. I don't know why this one was so amazing to me, but I really, really felt like I got stuck into it. It's not, I think it's quite a long book. I think it's like 500 pages, is it? Yeah, 450. So although it's quite a long book, I felt like it didn't read like a really long book. Like, I felt really invested in it, and I wanted to keep reading. So yeah, I really, really liked this one. I think because you don't have to read all of the Alex Cross books in order, I just have decided that I'm now going to. I feel like if you haven't read James Patterson and you want to give one a go, definitely give this one a go, because this one was really, really good, and yeah, my favourite for sure of James Patterson, and I gave it a 5-star. Next up was the book that you all picked for me from my March TBR, so I'll link that video down below. But basically, my TBRs now consist of me picking 3 books at random off my shelves, and then you vote for which one you want. And I had Pretties by Scott Westerfeld, Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, and Call the Midwife by Jennifer Worth, and you all picked Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. So I read this one, and I'm glad I've read it. I've now read 3 Jane Austen books, and this was definitely my least favourite of the 3. I've read Pride and Prejudice and Emma, other than this, and I think the reason for that is both in Emma and in Pride and Prejudice, I really cared about the two, or the main couple in it, so I really wanted them to work, whereas in this one, the two main characters, there are two sisters, Marianne and Eleanor, and both of their prospective partners I didn't like, and so for me I wasn't interested in the relationships. I did really enjoy the sisterly relationship in this, but for me it just wasn't enough because I didn't like Eleanor's sister Marianne anyway, so there just wasn't enough characters in this that I cared about in order for me to care about the story, I guess. I gave this a 3-star though. I did enjoy the writing, I always love Jane Austen's writing, but I do feel like this one wasn't as successful to me because of that reason. Like I didn't connect to the characters, I think. So yeah, I gave this one a 3-star. Very glad I have read it because that's now like I'm halfway through Jane Austen's books. And I am glad that I've finally read Sense and Sensibility, but I did not enjoy it as much as I kind of hoped I did, or I would. Next up was another thriller that I read this month. I was really into my thrillers and my sort of crime novels. I read A Meditational Murder by Robert Thorogood, which is the first book in the Death in Paradise series. I love the Death in Paradise TV show, and I'm currently on season 7 with my dad. We're watching them through, and so I thought this would be really fun to read this because I wasn't sure if the book was one of the cases in the TV show, but as far as I'm aware it's not. This is not a story that I knew, so I didn't know what was going to happen and how it was going to kind of solve itself. This follows a British detective inspector named Richard Poole who has been moved to Samari, which is an island in the Caribbean, and he has been put there to basically figure out murders as he does in the UK, and he got moved there. And basically he works with a team of 3 people from Samari who work there, and they basically try and solve the murder. And in this book, Aslan Kennedy is the victim, and he is murdered in a Japanese tea house where he's doing a morning sunrise meditation type thing, and all of the people in the room, including him, are blindfolded with headphones in, and so when they all wake up and realise that Aslan has been knifed to death, yeah, it's about what happens next and how they figure out what happened, when it seems to be a sort of locked room mystery. So I really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it a 4-star, and I very much enjoyed it. I can't wait to continue on with the series as well. Next up, I read a book on my Kindle, and that was weirdly, it sounds like a Christmas book, but it's not really, and that is Frost at Christmas by R.D. Wingfield, which is the first book in the Inspector Frost series. Inspector Frost is a TV show, again, that I've watched since I was a little girl and I've loved, and so I thought I'm going to start reading the books. Now the first one happened to be the one called Frost at Christmas, however it's set around Christmas time, but it's not Christmassy at all. So yeah, I didn't feel like I was reading it at the wrong time or anything like that. I just really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4-star as well. I love the character of Inspector Frost in general, like I absolutely love the show, and so reading the book was just as interesting and fun to me. It follows the disappearance of a little girl named Tracy, whose mum is a prostitute, and she reports her daughter missing after she goes to Sunday school and doesn't return home, and I believe she's about 8 years old. And yeah, it follows that and kind of what happened and them trying to figure out, and Inspector Frost is very unorthodox and he does things in very different ways, and yeah, I absolutely loved this. It just was fun to read, and it also gave me that nostalgia back because I'm pretty sure this case was actually an episode on the TV, and I think I've seen it, so yeah, I absolutely loved it and I can't wait to read more. And then the final book I read this month, I'd kind of like to forget I read because I know so many people love this, and Mary, I'm so sorry. I read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and I gave it a 2-star. I really didn't like this book, and I felt horrible all the way through reading it because I know how many people love this, and Mary's been wanting me to read this for ages, and I finally read it and it just wasn't for me. Yeah, I don't know, there's something about this book, it just wasn't interesting to me, I think, and I just felt like the writing was written in order to, I don't know, I just felt a bit stupid reading it because I just felt it going over my head, and I wasn't interested and I really didn't care, and I also hated all the characters in this, so there's that. I do think there were some nice kind of meaningful messages behind this book about like ageing and whatever, but that's why I gave it 2-star, not 1. But yeah, I just really didn't like this book, I'm afraid. It wasn't for me. I'm not going to go into it too much because I don't want to upset people. But yeah, I gave this 2-star. It wasn't the classic for me, unfortunately, and yeah, I don't know if I'll pick up more Oscar Wilde because I don't know if he's for me, but yeah, I did not particularly enjoy this one. So there you have it, guys. That is the 9 books that I read in the month of March. I really enjoyed my month of reading. There was a couple of classics that I didn't really enjoy very much, but the rest of the books I read were pretty much all thrillers and pretty much all great. So yeah, that's brilliant. Let me know what you read in March and what was your favourite, and if you've read any of these books and what you thought. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I shall see you next time. Bye guys!